the referees over the last few weeks have been, well, I'll just say it, they've been terrible. They've been the worst thing I've seen in a long time. As during the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions game, they had almost 30 penalties. And during the Thanksgiving game between the Raiders and the Cowboys, they had 28 penalties. And during the Saints vs. Bills contest, they had anywhere between 15 to 20 penalties. So when you're talking about that there's almost 78 penalties roughly on average, that there could be almost 78 penalties in 3 games on only 6 teams, either the teams were playing bad and they're grabbing and they're doing all these little things, or the rest were trying to have their own kind of show. But let's go back to the Cowboys and Raiders game. 28 penalties. 28 penalties. That's too much on both sides. It was also the first time in 18 years that there was 14 penalties on both sides and over 100 yards of penalty yardage on each side, too. It's the first time it happened in 18 years. It's unacceptable. It's really unacceptable. And according to Mike McCarthy, and according to Jerry Jones, and according to other players, they're frustrated with this. They're very frustrated. And why wouldn't they be? They're angered at the fact that here's a guy that we put in place to just facilitate the game. If we do something wrong, yes, throw the flag. But don't throw the flag every time you think something could happen. The last penalty, a 33-yard pass interference call on Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown, this is a true story, had 4 pass interferences against the Raiders. 2 of them I thought were accurate. Maybe 1 of them was accurate, but I'm going to say 2. 2 were accurate. But out of the other 2, no. No. And I said this in game. It seems like they're throwing more flags for people who have a name brand. And I didn't say it in exactly that kind of sentence, but it just seemed like because 3 of the pass interferences were on Anthony Brown when he faced Deshaun Jackson. Maybe 1 or 2 were accurate on that. And the others were like, no, you can't call that. The 33-yard penalty that gave the Raiders the win was Zay Jones is running by Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown's in pretty good position. Anthony Brown has to turn his head to look for the ball so he doesn't get a pass interference. Zay Jones decides to grab Anthony Brown's head, pull it into his chest, so Anthony Brown can't look for the ball, and yet they called defensive pass interference on Anthony Brown. But what do you want? What do you want? What do you want to do? When a guy is getting pulled and he's called for the pass interference, and then they said, well, he was face guarding. That's not a rule. That was taken out of the rule book a long time ago. The reason why was it gave the defender no chance if the ball was thrown behind him. They gave him no chance. If the ball was turned around, it gave him no chance to do anything. That's not a penalty. And that's been so many times over the last few years, but so many times in this season where the referees have gotten in the way of a good game because they decided they should. The game against the Chiefs and the Cowboys, between the Chiefs and the Cowboys in Arrowhead, was ridiculous. And I said it last week, C.J. Goodwin was running on the special teams. He's trying to go make a tackle on the Chiefs returner. One of the Chiefs special teamers is grabbing C.J. Goodwin, and C.J. Goodwin does not like that. he was trying. C.J. Goodwin's trying to pull away, and here's the Chiefs guy keep grabbing him all the way around. And so C.J. Goodwin's like, yo, let go. So he's trying to throw him, and so he ends up deciding that I'm going to get this guy off me. So he grabs C.J. Goodwin grabs his face mask. The guy doesn't let go, so they both like flip over out of bounds. They got to be separated. And the guy who is grabbing C.J. Goodwin comes up, pretends to shoot a gun in the air. So they throw the flag on him. They didn't see the C.J. Goodwin one. So, okay, like, obviously it did happen. I'm not going to say it didn't, but you can't throw, if you threw the flag on that, okay. But then the refs decide to look at the Jumbotron, they see that there was a face mask. And this is not legal, by the way. You can't do this as a referee. They decide to look at it, they see it, they throw the flag saying that there was a face mask. But so they just kind of offset the penalty. It made no sense. Because you can't do that. Which Mike Pereira kept saying over and over again. He's like, you can't do that. You can't look at the Jumbotron and say, oh, there's a flag that we missed. Oh, there's someone did an illegal act that we missed. We can't throw the flag on that. No, because we didn't see it in the dead ball period. So that's the problem with that. You can't call that, and yet they did anyway. So it's not just between the Cowboys. It's all around the league, because the Sean Hockley crew, who did the Raiders at Cowboys game, did the Packers at Vikings game the Sunday before Thanksgiving, there was, I think, 24, 25 penalties in that game. So the question I have is this. If that crew does another game this following weekend, and I hope they don't do any more Cowboy games, but if they do one this following weekend, is there going to be a lot of penalties in that game too? Because if there is, now we got a problem. Because that's a veteran crew. This is not a crew that was put together yesterday. Like, this is a veteran crew. The crew that Sean Hockley's worked with his father before him. This is a veteran crew. It made no sense. And what Pat McAfee said, and I agree with this. I firmly agree with this, as bad as this may sound. If you're a crew that you struggle in calling everything, or you decide that you should call everything, you should get the most technology to overrule a call. You should get the most technology. And if you're a crew who doesn't make many mistakes, and they allow, like, obviously there are penalties during a game, but if you kind of like, you allow them to play and perform and do their thing, and you don't make any real mistakes, you should have less technology, because you don't really need it, because you do a great job. But if you do a bad job, you should get the most technology so you get it right. But then I also agree with what he said this. He said that the crew that does the best, that doesn't have the technology, should get the primetime games. I agree with that. I 100% agree. You should not give bad officials the primetime games because they're bad officials. That doesn't make any sense. But back to football, that point doesn't matter. Kelvin Joseph was ejected during that game as well. So it was 2 ejections. Referee ended up getting hit in the chin. He ended up bleeding in that game as well. Kevin Stefanski said Kareem Hunt and Jack Conklin were going to play. The Bills, Tre'Davious White tore his ACL during the Saints game. He's done for the year. Michael Strahan gets his number to retire, and he wondered how come it took so long. And the Titans placed A.J. Brown on IR, and the Steelers had also placed Eric Ebron on IR as well.